Hi, I'm your host, Matt Darby, and welcome to the first ever Catholic Charities virtual fundraising event. I'll see you again in a few minutes, but let's get things started right away by hearing from the Executive Director of Catholic Charities of the Texas Panhandle, Jeff Gouldy.
Thank you, Matt. I would like to add my welcome to our first ever virtual Salt and Pepper Luncheon. We were disappointed back in March when we decided to postpone our event, and subsequent makeup dates have come and gone. That said, we have a phenomenal speaker with a poignant, timely message that we could not keep from you. So here we are, virtual luncheon. I hope you've settled in with your lunch. I have mine. I'll be back in a few minutes with an update, but now let me send you to Matt, who will introduce our keynote speaker. Matt?
You probably recognize the name Jon Mark Beilue as a longtime writer for the Amarillo Globe News, but he's also been deeply involved in spiritual and civic issues in the Amarillo area for many years. He's currently president of the board of Another Chance House. Jon Mark, take it away.
Well, thank you, Matt. As if we needed another reminder, and sometimes we do, we have always lived in uncertain times. And not only is tomorrow not guaranteed, but even if there is a tomorrow, we don't know exactly what it will look like. The COVID-19 pandemic, which began around March the 10th, has certainly changed our world, changed our nation, changed our lives, our health. Lives, livelihood, and way of life have been affected, some in major ways and some in just inconveniences, like this. I was supposed to speak and you were going to be in the audience on March the 19th at the St. Mary's Gym for the Salt and Pepper Luncheon. That you are looking at me at a screen of some size at least 2 months later is another example of the adjustments we have all had to make. But know this much. The COVID-19 pandemic, as unprecedented and as serious as it is still temporary. Hunger and poverty will outlast any pandemic. There will never be a vaccine for it, but there is help. So in that regard, I do really appreciate the opportunity to speak today. Today actually being May the 14th, however unusual it might be. You know, I've spoken to a number of groups over the years, but I was thinking about this. Outside of church, I don't think I have spoken about a cause so worthy as this one. Back in October of 2007, 13 years ago, I didn't shave for 5 or 6 days. And early on a Friday morning, I took an old khaki shirt and some old holey jeans, and that's jeans with holes in them, not blessed jeans, and dragged them repeatedly across our dusty garage floor before putting them on. I put on some old glasses, a baseball cap that had seen better days, and some old worn tennis shoes at the far reaches of my closet. I then drove to the parking lot, not far from here, at First Christian Church. I put my wedding ring and my watch in my pocket and left my wallet under the seat, grabbed my sign, cardboard sign, locked the doors, and walked to the prime real estate location of the stoplight on the north side of I-40 and Paramount. And then from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., I, as they say, flew a sign at the Bittersea intersection. I was homeless. I was, as I'll get to in a minute, the least of these. The purpose for this participatory column I would write in the Globe News for that Sunday was for several reasons. For one, I had read an Associated Press story about 2 men from Austin who lived in a fairly comfortable home and took nearly $70,000 between the two of them doing exactly this. Wow. And there were 2 other reasons too. I've always been drawn to agencies that help and those who are often swept up by life's broom. What if I lived it? What would be my reaction? What would be the public's? What would I collect from these motorists, if any? You know, we see them all the time along I-40 and other intersections. We glance at them and then we stare straight ahead, trying to mentally will the red light to green. and then we forget about them as soon as we step on the accelerator. Are we simply enabling them? Or are they truly hurting? Are they working a con like those two in Austin, looking for the next drink? Or are they truly in need, perhaps mentally ill with no place to turn? In those few seconds, we just don't know. I immediately felt self-conscious and embarrassed as I got out on the intersection. For 20 minutes, not much of anything. Then a man in an expedition rolled down the window a little and waved a few dollars in his hand. And I limped over there doing my best Ratso Rizzo impersonation. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Oh, and by the way, he said, your sign is upside down. Well, sure enough, my sign, hungry and homeless, God bless, was upside down. I want to say, sorry, I've had zero practice at this, but I do. A few minutes later, a DPS car slowly drove by, and I thought, well, this didn't last very long. But he looked at me, and he kept on driving. He returned about 10 minutes later. It was Wayne Beagle, whom I knew because he was the public information officer for the department. He had gone to the then Taco Bueno on Georgia and brought me back a breakfast burrito and coffee. I took my cap off. I said, Wayne, how you doing? And he kind of did a double take, and I explained, what I was doing, why I was out there. And he said, as a Christian, I struggle with what to do when I see people on the corner. I never know if I'm doing the right thing or not. But keep the food. You'll probably get hungry later on. And so it went. I could see through windshield faces of disgust, faces of sympathy. Often cars would not pull up even with me, but they'd be about a half a car length behind the intersection. Few of them made eye contact. But closer to the noon hour, there was an outpouring of aid. Soft drinks, bottled water, a turkey bacon club from Arby's, a to-go box of burritos, a big pickle, chips, a small sack of powdered donuts. One man gave me his homemade sandwich, and he said he'd just go through the drive-thru and get him something later. In all, 26 people gave me money, from as little as 8 cents to funeral director Charlie Cox, who motioned me over and peeled off 7 $1 bills and gave them to me. I called him later that afternoon from the newsroom. I know Charlie. And I asked him if he encountered a homeless man at the intersection. And I could still hear his words through the phone. That was you? He said, yeah, that was me. And he said, I usually give them a voucher that I carry with me to a fast food place and ask them if they know Jesus Christ. But I didn't do either one because, man, you look so dejected and so pitiful. I thought, if he wants a beer, let him go get a beer. The entire 6 hours I was out there, I heard just one cat call. One group of boys probably headed back to Tascosa High School with a cry of, get a job. In all, in 6 hours, I had enough food for 3 meals and $46.09, of which I turned over to City Church. You just don't know. For this, though, for what was to be the Salt and Pepper Luncheon, we do know. But really, I'm not sure it should matter. One of my favorite passages in the Bible is found in Matthew 25. In the previous chapter is the beginning of the Olivet Discourse, and Jesus sat on the Mount of Olives, and his disciples came to him with questions, namely, what sign would signal your return and the end of the world? And that prompted Jesus to speak for 91 uninterrupted verses. He talked of false prophets. He talked of the parable of the 10 bridesmaids, the parable of the 3 servants. But at the end of Matthew 25, he speaks of what is called the final judgment. He talks of the Son of Man sitting on the throne, separating all the people like a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. And he says to the ones on the right that they are blessed by my Father and will inherit the kingdom. Well, why those on the right, not the left? And he says this, for I was hungry, and you fed me. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me into your home. I was naked, and you gave me clothing. I was sick, and you cared for me. I was in prison, and you visited me. Jesus was speaking to the disciples, but he was also speaking, of course, to all of us. You know, the disciples were great men of faith. They dropped everything immediately to follow Jesus. But they were also flawed, too, arguing who was the greatest. And they could be stubborn, doubtful, telling crowds to get away and quit bothering Jesus. They were human. And Jesus anticipates their question and confusion. And he speaks for these righteous and all of us when he said, well, Lord, when did we ever see you hungry and feed you? When were you thirsty? You know, you've never been a stranger to us, and you've always had clothing, and we can't recall you being sick, and you've never been in prison for us to visit. When did any of this happen to you? And there it is, in verse 40. One of the most beautiful verses in the Bible. Jesus says, I tell you the truth. When you did it to one of the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you did it to me. Then he turns to the left, pointedly telling them that they are cursed, for they didn't provide food or drink. They didn't invite anyone to their home or offer anyone clothing. There was no visitation. Jesus said, when you refuse to help the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you are refusing to help me. The least of these. Using the words of Christ, and in that vein, back in March, I was at the food pantry at the Interfaith Hunger Project and saw Jesus. He was a she, wearing an old Amarilladilla's hoodie and warm-up pants and placing a box of cereal in her cart. On the next aisle over, Jesus was pushing his cart wearing a t-shirt and baggy gym shorts, lighter clothing for the cool weather, but perhaps that was all he could afford. A little later, a man with the City of Amarillo's Coming Home initiative brought in Jesus for the first time in the form of a woman. She had on her Sunday best and a permanent smile, and much like a wandering child at Christmas, just looking at the array of food available to her. Their faces, their gait, sometimes their clothing, provided hints of a life not easy, one harder than most. The food pantry is for those ages 55 and older, the disabled, and those in the city's Coming Home program. Now, for some dumb reason, I found it easy to not always associate seniors with hunger. You know, we think of hunger here locally, and one of the first things I think of is Snack Pack for Kids. It's an amazing, wonderful, life-altering program that was started in Amarillo and has now gone all over the state and elsewhere. They provide food for children for the weekends. Just a few days before the pandemic shut things down, I was part of a large group putting together over 6,000 bags of food in 45 minutes. You think of maybe a single mom and her children. And so you think of Faith City Mission or Salvation Army and any number of services stepping up for them. But as for the elderly, they're less visible, almost slipping through the margins. Oh, someone will take care of Grandma, surely. Yet it was Grandma who inadvertently named this luncheon that we're supposed to be at, flavoring her boiling water with salt and pepper for her salt and pepper soup, because that was all she could afford. They live on fixed incomes. They may have a Social Security check, a $700. And after they pay rent, utilities, and a few other necessities, what remains is precious little. And now, they're the most vulnerable, the most at risk to COVID-19. You know, Jesus, while on earth, never wasted a word. And I believe never got anything out of order when he was saying something. Everything was said exactly how he wanted and in the way he wanted it. And I find it telling that in talking with the disciples, the first words were in this example. For I was hungry. Not that he needed clothing or a roof over his head. He would get to that. But the first thing he said was, for I was hungry, and you fed me. It is the most basic, critical, and sometimes the most elusive physical need we have. It was 2,000 years ago. It still is today. The Interfaith Hunger Project Food Pantry, 4.5 years ago, moved into a bigger area from the Guyon Saunders Resource Center to this building now at 2801 Donovan Circle. Good, too, because the need and the ability to serve that need keeps growing. The food pantry serves roughly 1,150 clients, including 750 households. It grew from 250 some 5 years ago to nearly 5 times that today. And 140 are served through the Homebound program. They are often driven or take the bus, holding that box of food in their laps, knowing that they have sustenance for a few more weeks. That the protein from a can of tuna that sometimes gets lost in our cabinet shelves means more to them than you can imagine. Joyce and Vic will tell you that the 150 or more volunteers here are the heartbeat of the food pantry, and that's true. But let's use another bodily comparison. The donations that come through here, are the lifeblood of the food pantry. Donations from you. Donations make up 49% of the funding for the food pantry. Nearly half, 50%. And you don't have to wonder how much of that stays at home or where or how it's being used. Unlike those moments at the intersection and the man behind the sign, this time, you know. There are those who live in what I would call a bubble of arrogance, thinking that, well, these situations and our lifestyles, well, that can never happen to me. That we're somehow above it all. That they are the product of poor decisions somewhere down the line, when in fact, we don't know. And in fact, it shouldn't matter. You know, there are many ways to measure a community. One is how it cares for the poverty-stricken, the indigent, those in the margins. Few, as you know, do it better than Amarillo. From those passing motorists to a not really homeless man, to the ones I've mentioned, to churches, to the numerous agencies with people who have dedicated their lives to turning around less fortunate lives, to the Interfaith Hunger Project, and to one of the latest success stories, Heal the City. But the call and the request do not end. As Paul says in Galatians 6, verse 9, let us not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessings if we don't give up. It's the least of these who need it. It's the Lord who expects it from us. And as Christ says in Matthew 25, there's really no difference in the two. Thank you very much.
Jon Mark, I'm not sure thank you is enough to say in response to your powerful message. It would ring true any day, but it is particularly impactful given the state of our world today. Soon after we decided to postpone this luncheon, we reviewed our programs and staff, separating essential from non-essential. This process sent many of our staff home. It closed some programs, Remote service delivery became the rally call for others, and a few remained open. The Catholic Charities Hunger Project, also known by many as the Interfaith Hunger Project, remained open, but with a new model. Curbside delivery replaced client choice, but that wasn't all. We quickly realized other businesses and organizations like us were facing similar choices, and people would need extra help. We partnered with the High Plains Food Bank, the Amarillo Area Foundation, United Way of Amarillo and Canyon, Affiliated Foods, and many other businesses, churches, and individuals to open our pantry to anyone feeling food insecurity due to the virus. The local Knights of Columbus added volunteers and donations from local and state sources. The Most Reverend Patrick J. Zurich, Bishop of the Diocese of Amarillo, was instrumental in securing a gift from the National Knights of Columbus Foundation to support our efforts. This gift expanded our reach to other parts of the Texas Panhandle. Food pantries or churches in places like Dumas and Dalhart, among several others, received much needed food. We are proud with your help to continue these efforts.
You're about to hear from Ron and Nancy Railsback. Both are longtime volunteers for the agency. Ron has volunteered in the Hunger Project since 1999 by delivering food from the food bank to homebound clients. He also served on the board of directors and was board president for the agency. Nancy has helped with homebound delivery since 2004 and has worked in the pantry stocking shelves since her retirement. You'll also meet Lonnie Hall with the Church of Latter-day Saints. She organizes all the missionaries that come to Amarillo to perform their work, which includes stocking shelves in the pantry and packing the 140-plus boxes that go out to our homebound clients every month. She also organizes Bags of Hope food drives in all the LDS wards in Canyon and Amarillo. Finally, Tom Riney is a local attorney in Amarillo, and both he and his wife Sandy have served on the board of directors for Catholic Charities throughout the year. Tom and Sandy have been longtime donors to Catholic Charities and have always encouraged others to participate. First, let's hear from Ron and Nancy.
Hello, we're Ron and Nancy Railsback. We're volunteers at Catholic Charities Interfaith Hunger Project at the food pantry and also financially help support it. I've been a volunteer and involved with the food pantry since 1999, and Nancy, after she retired in 2019, started volunteering with me. We support the food project because it helps the seniors, 55 years and older, or handicapped people younger than 55, with a little bit extra food every month. The clients that come into the store are certified. That means that they check their income and their expenses. And it's sad to realize how little some people are trying to live on. Without SNAP and the HUD program, a lot of them would just be homeless. So help us support financially the food pantry and also help us support Catholic Charities. Thank you for your time and your money.
It is important to me to support the Interfaith Hunger Project of Catholic Charities because they supply those basic needs of food to the seniors in our community. I love the fact that these seniors can go in and shop for their food, select the items that they need, that they're most likely to eat, instead of being handed a box of food. This helps them feel independent and provides them dignity. This is such an amazing resource in our community, and I am so proud to support it.
Sandy and I are grateful for the opportunity that the Catholic Charities Hunger Project gives us to live out the gospel message of helping our neighbors. And when we give money to the Catholic Charities Hunger Project, we know that the money is going to feed people and not for a lot of administrative or overhead expense. In fact, one of the most impressive features of the Hunger Project is that it is supported by over 150 volunteers. The need has never been greater. I hope you will join us in supporting the Hunger Project.
We'd very much like to thank this year's Platinum sponsor, St. Thomas the Apostle Church, as well as our bronze sponsors, Louise Ross, St. Vincent de Paul Society of St. Mary's, Johnson & Sheldon PLLC, Amarillo National Bank, the Diocese of Amarillo, the Paul F. and Virginia J. Engler Foundation, St. Anne's Catholic Church in Canyon, and the law firm of Sprouse Schrader Smith. Thank you as well to our table sponsors, Schooler Funeral Home, Amarillo College, United Way of Amarillo and Canyon, Reed Beverage, Robert and Sheila Gideon, FIMC Realty, Mary Betty, Bill and Pat Murray, Stan and Kristen Britton, Tom and Sandy Riney, and the Father Dunn Assembly of Knights of Columbus, number 1990. And of course, thanks to you for taking part in this year's Catholic Charities virtual fundraising event. Now, some final words from Jeff.
Thanks again, Matt. How about the testimonials sharing why they support our program? Since they can't hear a round of applause, please like, share, or comment to show your appreciation. Whether you need food or have the resources to help others, you can find more information on our website, www.cctxp.org, find us on Facebook, or call us at 806-376-4571. We are here to help. I do want to take a moment to thank everyone who helped create this event. Our speakers, Matt, Jon Mark, Ron and Nancy, Lonnie, and Tom. Our sponsors, like St. Thomas the Apostle Church in Amarillo, and all the others we mentioned earlier, our donors, our production team, but most of all, I want to thank you. Thank you for sharing your lunchtime with us. We appreciate your attention and rely on your help. I hope your lunch was as good as mine, but more so that we fed your soul too, with inspiration and with hope. If you enjoyed your experience today, please feel free to share it. We will post it on Facebook, YouTube, and our website. Until we meet again, thank you, God bless you, and keep you safe. Goodbye.